That night, I got hungry and went to Taco Bell. I walked in and saw my fiancée with her best friend. She was supposed to be out of state. When she saw me, she said, "Come on, you're just boring. He satisfies all my needs." I said, "Well, screw your needs," canceled the wedding. The next morning, 65 missed calls. That night, I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near a Taco Bell. I'd been working a double shift at the hospital, 24 hours straight, and by the time my replacement showed up, I was running on fumes and caffeine. I hadn't eaten since noon, and my stomach felt like it was trying to fold in on itself. Normally, I would have just gone home, microwaved something, and collapsed. But hunger has a way of overriding reason, and the glowing red logo across the street looked like salvation. The place was almost empty when I walked in. The kind of quiet you only hear at 2 a.m. when even the fryers sound tired. The cashier barely glanced up. I was scrolling through my phone while waiting for my order when I heard a laugh. Not just any laugh, her laugh. That high, quick burst that used to make my chest tighten with warmth. At first, I thought I was imagining it. My fiancée, Renee, was supposed to be out of state visiting her cousin in Arizona. She'd left 2 days ago. We'd spoken that morning. She said she was exhausted from helping her cousin move. But when I turned toward that laugh, there she was. She was sitting at a booth near the window, leaning across the table, smiling in that way she only did when she wanted someone's full attention. And across from her sat Qley, her so-called best friend, the guy she swore was like a brother. He wasn't supposed to be here either. He'd moved to Denver for work 6 months ago. Yet there he was, wearing a smug grin and a watch I recognized as the one I bought him for his birthday when I was still trying to be supportive of their platonic friendship. For a moment, I froze. My body felt like it had shut down, my brain trying to process the math that didn't add up. Renee looked radiant. Hair done, makeup flawless, a little black dress that didn't say helping my cousin move. It said date night. I walked over before I could think. The sound of my shoes against the tile made her look up. The second our eyes met, her smile cracked. She didn't even look guilty, just startled, like someone caught halfway between two realities. Qley turned, frowning, sizing me up. He looked annoyed, like I'd interrupted something private. The man had nerve. He muttered something about giving them a minute, but she waved him off, trying to play it casual. I could see her brain working, deciding which version of reality she wanted to sell me. She started talking, fast, making excuses about coincidences, travel delays, how Qley just happened to be in town and they were catching up. But the half-empty margarita glasses on the table said otherwise. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask for explanations. I just stared at her hand, the engagement ring still on her finger, glinting under the fluorescent light, and something inside me clicked off. She must have sensed it because she went from defensive to cruel in seconds. Her words shifted from lies to insults, cutting through the air like glass. She said I was predictable, dull, that she'd tried to make it work, but couldn't keep pretending I was exciting. She told me Qley understood her in ways I never could. Qley smirked at that. That's when I said it, calmly, almost detached. Well, screw your needs. I didn't make a scene. I just left. Outside, the cold night hit me like a slap. I walked to my car and sat there for a long time. The silence felt heavier than anything she'd said. Then my phone buzzed, a notification from my banking app. A new charge. Taco Bell, $48.73. The joint account card. The same one she was supposed to be using for groceries for the trip. It was like the universe wanted to twist the knife. I drove home on autopilot, every red light feeling like mockery. Her suitcase was still by the door from the trip. Inside, I found receipts scattered on the counter. Gas stations. A hotel 2 miles from our apartment. My name on the billing address. I felt like the floor shifted under me. I didn't even know what part hurt more, the betrayal itself or how clumsy and thoughtless it was. All the months I'd been juggling extra shifts, saving for our wedding, while she'd been living a parallel life behind my back. By the time I dumped her clothes into a trash bag, dawn was creeping through the blinds. I deleted our shared wedding folder from my drive and called the venue first thing in the morning. The coordinator was polite but firm. Canceling this late would cost me half the deposit. I said to go ahead anyway. Then the real chaos began. By 9, my phone started blowing up. Calls from unknown numbers, from her mom, from mutual friends. When I ignored them, the texts poured in. At first, they were defensive, then desperate, then apologetic. Renee had discovered the empty closet. Her messages came in waves, long paragraphs alternating between fury and tears. She said I'd humiliated her, overreacted, misunderstood everything. Then came the guilt tactics. You're throwing away years. It was just dinner. You know I love you. Then the kicker. Can we at least talk? You owe me that much. I didn't know her a thing. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I opened our shared bank account online, and almost laughed. She'd tried transferring $2,500 to her own account that morning. The system flagged it as pending because I'd changed the settings last month, setting approval requirements for large transfers. That was my first real stroke of luck. I froze all joint accounts, transferred what was left into a private one, and locked down my credit cards. By noon, I was standing in the living room surrounded by the remains of what used to be our future. Canceled invitations, the half-finished guest list, her wedding vision board with its endless notes about color palettes and floral arrangements. It all looked absurd now. When the knocking started, I didn't have to look through the peephole to know it was her. Her voice was trembling on the other side of the door. She wasn't yelling anymore. She was pleading, telling me she'd made a mistake, that Qley meant nothing. I almost believed her for half a second, until I remembered the hotel receipt. I told her, through the door, that it was over. She switched gears immediately, from begging to blaming, from tears to anger. She said I'd never understand what she needed, that I made her feel invisible, that Qley was there when I wasn't. Every word stripped away another layer of illusion. When she finally left, I sat on the couch surrounded by silence. Then the phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail from my credit card company confirming an attempted charge for La Bella events. The same company handling our floral decorations. She had tried to use my card to cover the final payment. It was the last push I needed. That night, I sent her a single message. The wedding's off. The accounts are closed. Don't come back. Then I turned off my phone. When I woke up the next morning, there were 65 missed calls. Her name filled the screen over and over, like a haunting refrain. And that's when I realized, Renee wasn't just sorry. She was panicking. Because somewhere deep down, she knew what she'd really lost wasn't me. It was the life she'd been trying to build off my back. And I wasn't about to give it back. By the time the sun came up, my apartment looked like a battlefield. Empty hangers on the floor, her perfume still in the air, and my mind scattered across every surface. I hadn't slept. I sat at the kitchen counter with black coffee that had gone cold an hour earlier, staring at the bank notification on my phone. She tried to transfer money again. Another $900, this time from the joint savings account labeled Future Home Fund. I didn't even hesitate. I called the bank and had her access revoked permanently. The woman on the line asked if there'd been a case of fraud. I said yes. Fraud of the emotional kind. Then, like a script, my phone lit up with her name again. I let it ring. Then it buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Open the door, Jordan. Please. I didn't. But she didn't leave. I heard the faint sound of her crying through the hallway for a few minutes. Then nothing. When I finally looked through the peephole an hour later, she was gone. Or so I thought. Around noon, I got a call from the building manager saying someone had been arguing with security in the lobby. She was trying to get in, claiming she still lived there. When they asked for ID, she said her things were inside, which was technically true, since I hadn't thrown everything out yet. They called the police for mediation, and by the time I came downstairs, there she was, standing by the door, hair messy, eyes red, holding the engagement ring in her palm like a weapon. She tried to play it calm, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that she'd panicked after seeing me at Taco Bell, that Qley was just a rebound in a moment of confusion. She actually said that. A rebound from what? From a man who worked double shifts to pay for her dream wedding? I told her she had 10 minutes to grab her belongings and leave. She went silent, then walked past me with her head high, pretending she wasn't falling apart. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her collect the last pieces of her fantasy life. Her dresses, her makeup drawer, a box labeled Wedding Essentials. She didn't look at me once. But just as she reached the door, she turned and said something I'll never forget. She said she'd been planning to take what was hers anyway, that she had proof, we shared assets, and that if I didn't calm down, she'd make sure I regretted this financially. That was the moment I realized she wasn't desperate to fix anything. She was scared of losing control. I spent the rest of the day going through drawers, laptops, and old receipts. The more I found, the sicker I felt. Hidden between her journals and makeup bags were folders, wedding invoices, hotel bills, and printed confirmation emails from Qley's move. She'd wired him $2,000 3 months ago from our joint account, under the subject line, Help with Transition. So that's where the money had gone. But the most chilling part was what I found next. A calendar note on her tablet that said, Qley returns to town. Secret dinner? Dated 2 weeks before the Taco Bell night. The pieces started aligning in a way that felt too deliberate to be random. She hadn't stumbled into temptation. She'd planned it. I called my friend Lucas, who'd always been skeptical of her. He told me something that made my stomach twist. Apparently, she'd been dropping hints for weeks that our relationship was strained, and that I might not be stable. She'd been laying the groundwork to make herself the victim long before I ever caught her. Sure enough, That evening, my phone buzzed again, this time with notifications from social media. She'd posted a vague status about being betrayed by someone she trusted. Within an hour, people were messaging me, asking if everything was okay. I didn't respond publicly, but I saved every screenshot. The next day, an email came in from our wedding planner confirming the cancellation. At first, I was relieved, until I saw the payment confirmation attached. She had used my card after I told her it was over, charging a $1,500 finalization fee. That was my breaking point. I called her, my voice low and steady. I told her she had 24 hours to return the money or I'd report it as theft. She laughed, this cold, empty sound, and said it was our wedding, so technically, her wedding too. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. By nightfall, I was sitting in front of my laptop drafting a message to every vendor we'd booked, the venue, the caterer, the photographer. I explained the engagement was canceled, that I wasn't responsible for any new charges. Most of them understood. A few didn't. The florist even asked if I wanted to donate the deposit to a charity event. I said yes. I don't know why, but that made me feel lighter. The next morning, things escalated again. My HR department called me into a meeting. Someone had sent an email from a fake account claiming I was harassing my ex-fiancée and refusing to return her belongings. The message was full of exaggerated nonsense, but it was enough to force a formal review. Luckily, my security system had footage from her visit, time-stamped, calm, nothing confrontational. I sent it in immediately. When they saw it, the HR manager looked embarrassed. The fake email had been sent from an address ending in R.Miller88. Renee's initials. She wasn't just bitter. She was trying to ruin me. That night, Lucas called again. He said Qley had been posting pictures of himself and Renee at a bar downtown, the same bar she and I used to go to every Friday. Her hand was on his shoulder. The caption said, "Finally free from the lies." That one sentence set the internet on fire among our mutual friends. Some took her side. Others stayed quiet. But the truth has a way of surfacing on its own. 2 days later, I got an unexpected message from a woman named Mariah, someone I barely knew, a friend of a friend. She told me she'd been at Taco Bell that night, sitting in the corner booth, and she'd seen everything. She even remembered the part where Qley called me, some random dude bothering his girlfriend. She said it made her so uncomfortable that she recorded part of it on her phone because she thought a fight might break out. She still had the footage. I asked if she could send it. Within minutes, the file appeared in my inbox. I watched it in silence. It showed Renee laughing, touching Qley's arm, then glaring up at me with disgust when I walked in. Clear as day. No sound, but no need for it. I sat back, hands shaking. The video was only a minute long, but it was enough to destroy every lie she'd been spinning online. I didn't upload it yet. I wanted to wait. Because if she was going to keep escalating, I wanted her to hit her peak first, to think she'd won, before I pulled the rug from under her. The final straw came that weekend. She showed up again, this time with her mother. They pounded on my door, yelling that I'd ruined her life, that she'd lost friends, that I'd manipulated the narrative. Her mother called me heartless. I just stood there, calm as ice, and said I had proof. They didn't believe me, until I pulled up the video on my phone and held it out. Her mother's expression collapsed in real time. Renee's turned pale. She turned and walked away without another word. That was the last time I saw her face to face. But the real fireworks were still ahead, because by Monday morning, that video wouldn't just be in my hands anymore. It would be in everyone's. By Monday morning, the footage had already made its rounds among the people who mattered most. I didn't post it publicly, at least not in the beginning. I sent it quietly, first to her mother, then to her maid of honor, her cousin in Arizona, and finally, to the group chat with our mutual friends that she'd hijacked to paint herself as the victim. No captions, no explanation, just the file. Within an hour, the silence was deafening. Messages that used to be full of pity and outrage started turning into apologies, questions, and disbelief. A few people even left the group entirely. I didn't need to say a single word. The video spoke louder than anything I could have written. By noon, she called. The tone was different now, shaky, panicked, pleading. She said she'd never meant to hurt me like that she was ashamed, that it was all a huge mistake blown out of proportion. I listened for about 30 seconds before hanging up. Then the calls from Qley started. He left a voicemail accusing me of ruining his reputation. I didn't respond to him either, because that same day, I found out something that turned everything upside down again. My coworker Jamie came into my office and closed the door. She said she'd seen Qley's name trending locally on social media. Apparently, someone had uploaded the same Taco Bell footage to a private neighborhood page. The post caption read, "Cheating fiancé and her best friend caught in the act." It had spread like wildfire, and by the time I checked, it had already been viewed thousands of times. The kicker? Qley was wearing his company polo, the one with the Summit Roofing and Construction logo right across his chest. His face was clear, the logo readable, the timestamp visible. I didn't post it, but someone somewhere had. Maybe one of the people I sent it to. Maybe someone from her circle who finally had enough of her lies. Either way, it didn't matter. By Tuesday, Qley's employer had seen it. He was suspended pending an internal review for unprofessional conduct. And just like that, her knight in shining armor turned into another liability. That evening, my phone buzzed again, this time with a text from her old college friend, Stephanie. She said Renee had been staying with her since the fallout, but had been kicked out that morning after a heated argument. Apparently, Renee had tried to convince Stephanie to post statements online claiming the video was edited. When Stephanie refused, Renee broke a vase, packed her things, and stormed off. She was unraveling faster than I expected. Still, I hadn't yet had the satisfaction of real closure. I wanted her to feel, in public, the same kind of silent humiliation she'd handed me in that fast food booth. And, unfortunately for her, that moment arrived sooner than I planned. The following Friday, I got a call from her employer, Harrison and Blythe Consulting. The HR rep sounded hesitant but professional. She asked if I could confirm whether Renee had used my card for event-related expenses tied to the canceled wedding. Apparently, Renee had tried to claim those charges as work-related reimbursements. She'd filed for a company refund for a client engagement dinner and a corporate reservation at La Bella Events. Both were the same charges from our wedding account. I told the HR rep everything. Every date, every charge, every receipt I still had stored. By the end of that call, I knew the dominoes were falling for good. The next day, a mutual acquaintance messaged me that Renee had been suspended from her job pending investigation. That same night, she posted a long, emotional rant about being betrayed by people she trusted and losing everything because of one mistake. Her comments were full of strangers telling her to take accountability. For the first time since that night at Taco Bell, I felt calm. But I'd underestimated how far she was willing to go to claw her way back. 2 days later, I came home from work to find an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a handwritten note in her familiar looping handwriting. It said she wanted to meet, just one last conversation. I tore it in half and threw it away. But the next morning, I noticed something off. My car, parked in its usual spot, had a long, fresh scratch running along the driver's side door. Deep, deliberate. I didn't need proof. I knew. I called the police, filed a report, and handed over the security footage from the lot. Sure enough, the camera caught her car pulling in around midnight and leaving 10 minutes later. The officer who took the report said they'd reach out to her for questioning. That night, she called again, this time screaming, accusing me of trying to ruin her life. The irony was too much. I didn't even answer. The next day, she sent an email saying I was harassing her and spreading misinformation online. She copied a few of our mutual friends on it, maybe hoping it would scare me into backing down. But when I replied with the police report case number and the attached video still showing her car, she went silent again. By the weekend, her world had collapsed completely. Qley's company terminated his contract. The footage was now being circulated as a training example internally about professionalism violations. Renee's company dropped her case after confirming the expense fraud. She lost her job. Her professional reputation, gone. Still, she tried to save face by posting on a new account about starting over and self-love. But everyone who knew the real story just scrolled past. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought she'd fade quietly, finally accepting that she'd burned every bridge she had. But then came the twist I didn't see coming. I got a call from the wedding venue's billing department. The manager sounded confused. He said someone claiming to be my fiancée had called earlier that week, demanding a refund for the canceled event, insisting she had a legal right to half of it. When the venue refused, she threatened to sue them, claiming I defrauded her. That call triggered a follow-up from their legal team. To me, they wanted to make sure everything was properly documented. I sent them every piece of evidence, every receipt, every cancellation email. The manager called back 2 days later, almost amused. He said she'd tried to show up in person with a printed spreadsheet and a letter she'd written herself, pretending it was from my bank. They escorted her out. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to get back at me emotionally. She was desperate for money. That evening, I got another email from her. The subject line read, "You don't understand what you've done." I didn't open it. I deleted it immediately. Instead, I poured myself a drink and sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. I thought about all the nights I'd worked overtime so she could focus on wedding planning. All the weekends I'd spent fixing things for her, buying things she wanted, believing in the illusion of partnership. And then I thought about that moment in Taco Bell. Her face, the smirk on Qley's, the sound of her voice saying I was boring. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was boring. But boring men sleep at night with clean consciences. Boring men don't steal, don't cheat, don't lie through their teeth while wearing engagement rings. She wanted excitement. She got it. By the end of the month, her number was blocked, her belongings gone, and the chaos finally quiet. But deep down, I knew one thing. She wasn't done yet. Women like Renee never end things cleanly. They twist them until there's one last spark left to burn. And I could already feel the heat of that final spark on the horizon. I was right. The peace didn't last long. About 2 weeks after the chaos seemed to fade, a thick envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, but the handwriting on it was painfully familiar. Inside was a formal-looking document with an attorney's header, Law Offices of Harlan and Cresswell. The letter claimed Renee was seeking financial restitution for emotional distress and breach of shared financial obligations. I read it twice, then laughed. It was the kind of move that screamed desperation rather than strategy. She'd lost control of the narrative, the money, the sympathy, and now she was clawing at the only thing left: legal intimidation. Her attorney alleged I'd embarrassed her publicly and caused reputational damage. What they didn't know was that I still had the joint account statements, screenshots of her unauthorized transactions, and the police report about my vandalized car. I called the number listed on the letter and calmly explained that if this went to court, I'd countersue for fraud and theft. I even mentioned the footage. The attorney paused, said he'd need to review the circumstances, and promised to follow up. I never heard back. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. But closure doesn't always come quietly. The next morning, Lucas texted me a screenshot from social media. Renee had created a new account and was posting about starting fresh after narcissistic abuse. The comments were filled with strangers offering sympathy, people who had no idea she'd been the one holding the knife the entire time. I ignored it. Let her have her stage. Every actor needs an audience, even if the performance is built on lies. A week later, I started noticing small things missing from my apartment lobby. My doormat vanished. My car had fingerprints on the windows, but the cameras didn't catch anyone clearly. It felt too targeted to be random. Lucas suggested I get a restraining order, but I hesitated. I didn't want to feed into her drama again. Then, one Friday afternoon, I got a call from a detective at the local precinct. He said they'd found my name listed in connection to an ongoing inquiry involving unauthorized credit use. My heart sank for a second until he explained further. Someone had tried to open a new credit line using my name and social security number. They caught it early because the application used an outdated address, my old apartment, the one I'd shared with Renee. It wasn't just coincidence. She was still trying to use me as a resource. I gave the detective everything I had: emails, texts, even a photo of her handwriting from the wedding planning notes. He thanked me and promised to flag the case for investigation. A week later, he called again, saying the credit application had been traced to a laptop registered to Corey Daniels. That revelation hit harder than I expected. I thought he'd bailed after his public humiliation, but apparently, he and Renee were still in touch, if not physically, then in crime. But karma has impeccable timing. 3 weeks after that call, I got a message from Mariah, the same woman who'd recorded the Taco Bell footage. She sent me a link to a local news article. The headline read, "Former roofing company employee arrested for fraudulent credit applications." Corey had been caught trying to open multiple lines of credit using old client details from his previous job. His name was plastered all over the article, his mugshot floating beside words like fraudulent activity and identity misuse. I didn't even need to ask who his partner in crime had been. By then, Renee's social media accounts were silent. No more posts about healing or self-love. She'd vanished from the digital world completely. It wasn't long before her mother reached out. An unexpected email, short and apologetic. She said Renee had made some poor decisions, that she'd fallen in with bad influences, and that she was taking time away to recover. I didn't reply, because the truth was, I didn't need revenge anymore. It had already unfolded on its own, piece by piece, without me lifting a finger. A few months later, I accepted a job transfer to another city. I packed up what little I still had, leaving behind the apartment that had witnessed every high and low of the past year. On my last night there, I stood by the window one last time, watching the city hum below me. I thought about how easily one person can dismantle another's peace, how subtle manipulation can turn into full-blown destruction. But the thing about chaos is that it eventually burns itself out. When I moved, I deleted her number for good. Not just blocked, deleted. Her name, her messages, everything. It felt symbolic, like clearing a space that had been crowded for too long. For a while, I didn't date. I didn't even talk much about what happened. But life has this quiet way of giving back balance when you stop chasing it. 6 months later, I ran into an old college friend named Alyssa at a volunteer event. She remembered me from the days before Renee, before the mess. She asked how I'd been, and I surprised myself by saying I was better than I've been in years. We started getting coffee after the events. Nothing romantic at first, just two people reconnecting over stories of how absurd adulthood could be. There was something grounding about talking to someone who didn't know me through the lens of that old drama. She didn't flinch when I mentioned the past. She didn't pity me either. She just listened, nodded, and cracked jokes at the right moments. It felt normal again, something I hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, as we left the cafe, I saw a familiar figure across the street. For a second, I thought it was her, Renee. The same posture, same long hair. But as the woman turned, I realized it wasn't. Still, that half-second brought an old chill back. It reminded me that ghosts of the past don't always vanish. Sometimes, they just fade into the background, watching quietly as you move on. Months passed. Work was steady, peaceful. My coworkers respected me. My evenings were quiet. No more shouting matches, no guilt-laden apologies, no late-night bank alerts. Just calm. Then one morning, an envelope arrived at my office. No name, no address, just my initials scrawled in blue ink. Inside was a check for $2,500, made out to me. The memo line read simply, "For what I took." No signature, but I didn't need one. I deposited it, not out of forgiveness, but closure. Because somewhere, somehow, she'd learned what accountability felt like, even if it came too late. I kept the deposit slip in a drawer at home, not as a trophy, but as proof that the storm was over. Life after Renee wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was quiet, structured, unremarkable, and that's exactly what I needed. There's something profoundly peaceful about knowing that the chaos has finally found another host to feed on. One evening, I got an email from my old landlord back in my previous city. He said someone had left a voicemail asking for me, a woman. She'd asked if I'd moved on and found someone new. He didn't give her any information, of course. I read the message twice, then deleted it. Because by then, I had moved on. Not just physically, but in every way that mattered. It's strange. I used to think closure meant confrontation, an apology, or justice. But it doesn't. It's just the day you wake up and realize their name doesn't taste like venom anymore. It's when the memory stops making your stomach tighten. It's when you stop replaying what you could have done differently and start being grateful that you did something, that you walked away. Renee wanted excitement. Corey wanted power. They both got it, and it destroyed them. Me? I just wanted peace. And now I had it. The funny part is, sometimes I still drive past a Taco Bell after work. Every time, I catch a faint reflection in the window and remember that night, the moment everything shattered. And I smile. Because that night wasn't the worst night of my life anymore. It was the night I finally got free.